Breaking news just a few minutes ago, a measure to limit President Trump's ability to strike Venezuela passed a key procedural vote in the Senate. Let's bring in ABC's Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill and senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez. So, Jay, what does this mean now? What happens next?
An extremely significant rebuke of President Trump, Diane, from a handful of Republicans who joined with all Senate Democrats to pass this measure through a key procedural vote. It's now going to get a full vote in the Senate. If the numbers from this vote hold, it's expected to pass there. It's not necessarily on track to being enacted. It's got to go through the House. And if it got through the House, President Trump would have to sign it into law. And he has signaled that he would not do that, right? This is a measure to curtail his military power in Venezuela. If President Trump vetoed it, then Congress could override that veto. But we're really getting ahead of ourselves. What this is right now is a symbolic rebuke from 5 Republicans voting with Democrats to rein in the president's military powers when it comes to Venezuela after that high-stakes, significant operation to capture Nicolas Maduro, and the Trump administration now saying, in the president's words, they are going to, quote-unquote, run Venezuela for a period that administration officials have said could be years here. Here are the 5 Republicans that voted with Democrats to rebuke the president. It's noteworthy to list them off. Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, 2 moderates. They were watched, and Murkowski was expected to be a yes. Rand Paul has been frequently critical of President Trump's use of military force. So those 3 were expected. But then you had Todd Young, Republican senator of Utah, and then very noteworthy here, Josh Hawley also voting yes. Those 2 Republican senators in particular, Hawley, saying that one of their biggest concerns and one of the reasons why they voted yes here was because they were hedging against the possibility that President Trump would put boots on the ground, deploy military assets to Venezuela as the U.S. is seeking to oversee, in a sense, the government of that country. Now, we haven't seen the administration put forward plans to deploy military troops to Venezuela, but the president, notably, when he announced the successful operation to capture Maduro, didn't rule out the use of further military force. So that's one of the concerns that these 5 Republican senators had in voting to rebuke the president here. It doesn't make this law. It doesn't immediately curtail the president's war powers. And administrations over the last few decades have questioned the constitutionality of the law that governs this legislation here, the War Powers Act. But all of that to say, you've got 5 Republicans here stepping to the president after he's done a high-stakes, high-profile military operation in Venezuela.
And Louis, what's the latest on the Trump administration's plan to run Venezuela? The president says that could go on indefinitely.
No, that's exactly right, Diane. And just to reinforce what Jay said, there are no U.S. troops in Venezuela right now. What we saw was a one-off action this past weekend where Nicolas Maduro and his wife were captured and then sent to the United States for prosecution. What the administration has been talking about when they say they're going to run Venezuela is, as we've heard from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is that the United States is going to use levers for maximum pressure to exert pressure on Venezuela so that they can control Venezuela's oil production. And use the funds from the transfer and the sale of those of that oil on the legal market to then bring it back to Venezuela. But again, there's also a component there where the United States might receive some of that funds as well, but that remains exactly unclear. So for now, the administration is maintaining constant contact. We learned that from President Trump, who gave an interview to the New York Times yesterday, where he said that Secretary Rubio is in constant communication with Venezuela's new acting president and other leaders as well. And the president also reinforced that he says that for now, he feels satisfied that Venezuela is doing what is necessary for the United States right now. But so right now it's unclear exactly how things are going to progress militarily, should that ever happen again. Though we did see that the president did say very early on, right after when he spoke about the raid this past weekend, he said that there had been plans for a second wave that never came to realization because the operation had been so successful. But he said that there could be launched again at any time should he feel that it is necessary. And how would that happen? We still have 15,000 U.S. military troops in the region, in the Caribbean as well. Lots of military aircraft, some of which were used in the raids that were carried out this weekend. So the presence is still there, but for now, no U.S. military presence in Venezuela.
Jay O'Brien, Louis Martinez, thank you both.